Today's interview is with David Hudgins. David has a cool story. He started out in single families and then bought some duplexes, but he's in California, so he invested quite out of state quite a bit. He invested in Dallas and he invested in Tennessee, eventually buying a 38 unit in Memphis. So he talks about a lot about that 38 units and some testing times that he had with that and what he's learned through that. And now he's looking to do 100 plus units. So cool story, interesting guy. So stick around for all of that. As always, like and subscribe on Wrestling with Real Estate, the YouTube channel. Go to the WWRE podcast and give me a 5-star rating and write me a review. It really does help build this platform. And I'm looking to speak to as many of you as possible. If you're interested in real estate, whatever capacity that is, I'd love to get to know you, see if there's any way whatsoever I can help you. So go to the link in the description down below or go to wrestlingwithrealestate.com. But before that, stick around for today's awesome interview with David Hudgins. Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all our real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we're joined by David Hudgins. How you doing, David?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
I love your energy. It's so amazing.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I try and bring something to the show, right? So at least energy is the least I can bring, so that's for sure. Well, hey, David, thank you so much for making time. I really appreciate it. Excited to dive into today's exciting conversation. But before we do that, do you want to give us an idea about your background, what you've been up to, and what you're currently up to?
Sure. So I grew up in Tennessee and moved to California in 2000. I decided I could survive Y2K, so I could do anything, and moved to LA. I work in the entertainment industry and have an equipment rental company for the entertainment industry that started in 2003. So we have like the trucks with all the lights and cameras and stuff like that in it. So my wife and I wanted to invest, and we're trying to decide if we should do real estate or stocks. And she had a real estate background, so we decided to go with real estate. And in 2007, started buying some single family properties. We live in LA, so they're really expensive. So we were like an apartment, we can't really afford anything. So we started buying out of state. We bought in like Texas and Mississippi. And then 2009 hit and we were able to afford stuff in LA. So we started buying some properties in LA, and then 2000 bought some duplexes in LA. 2015 started wanting to get into multifamily, and then kind of struggled a little bit. And finally in 2018, we closed on a 36 unit in Memphis. So we're really excited about that. And now we'd like to scale up and do some larger deals, and have been working on syndicating, just been meeting people and networking for the last year. So now 2021's here. I'm ready to take action and move forward and find some good deals.
Yeah, it's funny to hear you say the Y2J thing, Y2K thing, right? Again, right? It was at the time, I remember that, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is going to be a disaster. Everything's going to go wrong." And then midnight hit, and there was pretty much
nothing.
Right? Yeah, it was. I remember that time quite vividly for some reason. So it's interesting. But
go ahead. Now I'm on a date, and I have to do the 4 digits. And I'm like, why do we have to do all 4? I'm like, oh yeah, Y2K. That's
that's funny. But you said you guys started your business was renting out equipment to host events. How did you get into that? How did you end up doing that business?
Well, I was doing lighting and photo shoots, and the photographers didn't really care where we got the equipment from. So the guy I started with, we were like, why not just buy our own equipment and rent it out to him? So we got a loan from his dad and started the company, and just kind of kept growing it and growing it. And 18 years later, we're still going.
Wow. And that's what you still do now?
Yeah.
What kind of events do you do now?
Well, we pretty much just do photo shoots. So we do like celebrity photo shoots, advertising, album covers, movie posters, magazine covers, stuff like that.
And how demanding is that job on you in terms of time, in terms of input into the business?
It's pretty demanding. I mean, it's owning your own business is tough. 7-day-a-week job. Um, so it takes up a lot of time. So it's been hard to squeeze in doing the real estate on the side. That's been what was great about last year is when, we had the whole COVID and we were closed for a couple of months, which was horrible for the business. But for me in real estate, it was great because it gave me the time to finally like network and spend the time, investing into it to move forward with it.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen the same thing, right? Of course, it's been unfortunate for a lot of people, but for me, it's been very beneficial, in terms of real estate, in terms of what I've been able to do. And it's funny what you can kind of achieve through adversity sometimes, right? And through
Yeah,
not ideal circumstances, right? There's always, and I feel like there's always a positive of something you can make out of a bad situation a lot of times. And I think that's definitely
exactly.
what last year, 2020, definitely taught me that. And
Yeah.
so what was the reasoning behind wanting to find another investment? You said that you guys were looking at stocks and looking at real estate. Was it just for retirement? Was it that you were getting
Yeah.
burnt out? Okay, so you're looking
Yeah,
for.
just for retirement. We're in our 30s, and I think we're in our 30s then. So long ago. Just wanted to start building retirement, and neither one of us come from like wealthy families, so we know that we're going to need to provide for ourselves in retirement. So just trying to start, growing assets and having something for down the road.
So you said your wife had a background in real estate. What kind of background is that? Did she invest herself, or was she an agent?
She has an amazing real estate background. She used to be an underwriter for Wells Fargo,
Oh,
and
wow.
then she worked for Sun America, who they did LIHTC multifamily. So they owned a portfolio of 1,600 properties, and she was an asset manager for like 3 years, and then she got promoted to dispositions and did that for 3 years and sold 75 properties for 350 million. And then she got out of that and became a broker with Keller Williams.
Oh,
And
wow.
she's still doing that today.
Oh, wow. She has a great background then. She has a
Yeah.
lot of knowledge, and so she's very pro real estate then as well.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
what, back then when you were looking at stocks or real estate, which one did you prefer at that time?
Well, I guess I had already been dabbling stocks. I kind of like stocks. I didn't really know anything about real estate. And, since we had our guidance on it, then it kind of helped get over that hump.
But outside of your wife guiding you, was there anything else? Were you sure at that time when your wife was telling you, or did you need some persuasion? Do you think?
I think I was just going with her lead because I trusted her judgment. But it was totally foreign to me because living in an apartment in LA and just never had really thought I'd be able to afford to buy real estate because again, in LA, it's so expensive.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, so what was the first few investments that you made? Then you guys, I think you said you did some single families and some duplexes, right?
The first one we did was I bought a house in Houston.
Okay.
It was like a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house with a 2-car garage, which again, living in LA, I'm like, this thing's huge. It's awesome. And it was only 130,000,
Okay.
10% down. So it only cost me $13,000 to buy it. So I thought that was great. And then at the end of the year, it was worth $180,000. So it'd gone up in value $50,000. So I'm like, this is great. I was cash flowing 400 bucks a month. I made $50,000. I thought I was a real estate genius. Well, that was 2007.
Mm,
So we all know what happens the next year.
yeah.
It went from being worth 180,000 to being worth 90,000. So I ended up going underwater in it. And it was new construction. So I did my due diligence and talked to the tax assessor about the taxes. But at the time, the taxes were just for the empty lot. So the next year, it got reassessed with an actual house on it, which doubled my taxes. So I went from making 400 a month to breaking even.
Mm,
And then after that, it's 2008, 2009, our tenant lost their job and they were going to move out, but we didn't know where we would find another tenant. So they're looking for places a couple $100 less. We just lowered the rent and had them stay in it.
mm.
So then I ended up losing a couple $100 a month. So that was a big learning lesson for me. So I'm actually glad I went through that with one house because now that we're going through this, last year and this year, I have a lot more assets. So I'm a lot smarter and can go into it, you know, better off and have savings and reserves and and all of that. So it was actually a great lesson to learn.
Yeah. So it's just one, was it one, just that one property you had when the recession hit?
We actually had two. We had that one, and then we bought one in Mississippi.
Okay. What
Well,
so out of interest, what was obviously the market that you were in was very expensive and it didn't make sense to buy there. So what made you go to Dallas and then to Mississippi? What did you like about those markets?
Well, the reason we went to Mississippi is it was after Hurricane Katrina, and President Bush did the Go Zone initiative. So you're able to invest there, and take a 50% depreciation in the first year. So
Wow.
basically, my wife bought that house and did her down payment, and then we were able to take the depreciation at the end of the year, and she basically got her down payment back as a tax refund. So she kind of got a free house.
Wow.
So that was the reason we did it. I kind of wish we had ended up buying more properties there.
In Mississippi?
Yeah, and been able to take advantage of that, because
Yeah.
that was a great deal looking back on it.
But from a purchase price point of view, had the recession hit at that point, or was this pre-recession? And
This was pre-recession. It was still 2007, so we still unfortunately bought at the top of the market. But we held on to it for a couple of years and were able to sell and make some money off of it.
yeah. So obviously both houses you bought for cash flow, right? And essentially what I'm hearing is that you were able to ride it out
Yeah,
because you had that cash flow and you had that buffer.
yeah,
That's it. Yeah, because the thing is, if you don't have to sell, right, it doesn't matter if the price drops, right? Well, it does matter, of course it matters,
yeah,
but it doesn't mean that you have to sell, right? If the price drops, as long as you've got that cash flow and you're not forced to sell, you can ride it out. And I think most people would agree, over time, real estate is always going to bounce back, right? Unless you
oh,
pay a
definitely.
ridiculous price for it. So if you have that cash flow, I think, especially now, I think now, with so many unknowns, right? If you can buy for cash flow, you can always insulate yourself from that, right? And if you have long-term debt on top of that as well, and some reserves, well, you take,
Definitely.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's the thing to do, is to buy for cash flow, because then even if your value goes down, it doesn't matter because you still have the cash flow. And if you're cash flowing well, and you have some tenants move out and you have some vacancies, then and your cash flow drops, and you still have enough to pay your bills. So, and then if you have reserves on top of that, then that just gives you that extra cushion that you need, that we all found out last year, that we need that reserves, we need that cushion to be able to weather the storm. Because I always thought, okay, maybe something happens for a couple of months. I didn't even foresee being shut down for 5 months, 6 months. So that was a bigger storm than I was really planning would actually ever happen. Luckily, I had the reserves. I had a 6-month reserve, so I was able to weather it, and it didn't affect me.
Mm. And just going back to something you said earlier, and I should have picked up on, is you said you put 10% down on that investment property, right?
Yeah,
People know it's usually, if you're going through a traditional lender, right, you're usually looking at 20 to 25% down, right? Was it
yeah,
just the lending at the time, that the lending was so loose? Is that how you were able to get a 10%
yeah,
down?
yeah. That was back in 2007, where if you had a pulse, you could get approved, for anything. So yeah, that's why it was easy. And then we had the cash flow problems with it, but then they had the HARP loan, so you're able to refinance it, and because we were underwater on it, so we're able to refinance it, get some better lending terms, so that reduced our lending costs some, which helped us with that cash flow.
So how did the HARP work? How did that work? Housing assistance.
Yeah, housing assistance relief program.
Okay.
Basically, if you're underwater in your property, which I'm surprised they may end up doing something else with, this year with this, but if you're underwater with your property, you can go back to the lender and get it refinanced. And basically they lower your loan amount so that you just owe less money. And the bank is basically taking a haircut, taking a loss on your debt, but it keeps people from foreclosing and the bank having to go through the foreclosure process. So I think and I think the government backed it. So maybe the government, paid that difference or something. I can't remember the exact details, but I think it was something that benefited everybody.
Yeah. Was there any negative consequences to that? Did it
I
affect
don't
your
think
credit?
so.
Did it stay in your record?
No, I
Wow.
don't think there's anything negative to it.
Yeah. That was, in a way, that was great, right? You've just
Yeah,
lowered your mortgage, whatever it is, 50,000, 20,000, whatever it may be.
yeah.
That's great. So you must have bought right, not to stay on this one property, but it's interesting. You must have bought it right because 90% leverage is quite a high leverage, right? 10%
Yeah.
down, 90% leverage. But for it to still cash flow, for you still to be able to ride it out and everything like that, it must have been a good deal initially, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it was. I think maybe more we got lucky than having the skill, but yeah, it was a good deal.
Okay. And so then you went, you eventually got and bought 36 units in Memphis.
Yeah, we bought some stuff in LA before that, but then we ended up buying a 36 unit in Memphis. So that was our first multifamily deal. Took us a couple of years to kind of get there and be able to take it down, but that was exciting once we closed on it.
So what made you guys make that jump from, a few duplexes, some single family to 36 units? That's quite the jump, right? It's not 10 units,
Yeah.
not 12.
Yeah, it's a pretty big, it's a whole
Yeah.
different ballgame because you go from, 4 units and last year just doing residential lending and 5 units enough you get in commercial. And then with this, it was 2.5 million. So we were doing agency debt and, dealing with Freddie Mac, and that was a whole different lending product. So it was a big challenge, a big learning curve, but it was great. And to answer your question, we just wanted to scale up and get bigger, instead of buying a bunch of houses and having, a bunch of roofs and a bunch of properties to maintain. It's just all one, and there's one management company, and it's just kind of more streamlined.
Mm. So, and you said that you guys got agency debts on that. So for
Yeah.
who don't know, what is agency debt?
So agency, there's Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, and those are the two government-backed lending agents. So they're big in the multifamily space because they basically lend the bulk of um, the the product. Otherwise, you're going through like a smaller bank for smaller deals, but the larger deals you pretty much have to go with the two of them. So they're the two agencies. They set the rules of the guidelines of what you have to go by to qualify, and the rates and et cetera.
And what is the benefit of going with agency debt over, a credit union or a local bank?
Usually you can get a little bit better terms with it. The fine, like the because they do so much of it, you kind of get better returns. You can get the non-recourse stuff. So if you default for some reason, then they don't come after you. They just go after the assets. So that's like a good thing to have. So they just have a lot more products out there and better interest rates. And and it all depends. Every deal is different. So you might find like a smaller deal where you could actually get a better deal with a local bank, a local lender, especially if you have a reputation with them and a relationship. So it's really with every deal, you have to analyze the different lending products that are out there.
Yeah, and it seems with agency debt, they have quite a strict box that they have to put you in, right?
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of flexibility, right? You have to meet this criteria, A, B, C, whatever those criteria is, and then, but then like you said, you get non-recourse debt, you get a little bit more favorable terms. So it can work out, but lower interest rates, I think, a lot of times, right? But
Yeah.
the benefit of going with a local credit union and for a local bank, for people who don't know, is that they have a lot more flexibility. They want your loans a lot more, right? They're a little bit more eager to have you do it with them.
Yeah.
You may pay a little bit more of a higher interest rate, but they'll have more flexibility. They'll be able to make your loan work, whereas, Fannie or Freddie might not be able to make the same deal work.
Yeah.
Did you guys have any issues? Because obviously, even though your wife has a wealth of experience and you do own some single families and some duplexes, from a lending standpoint, 36 units to them is something, a completely different animal, right? Did you guys have any difficulty qualifying for that agency debt?
We did not on this property, well, a little bit on this property, but beforehand, we tried to buy something in San Antonio in 2015 and went through 7 lenders and couldn't get it financed because it's our first one that we're buying. We live in California. We're buying in Texas, which Texas got burned a lot in the recession. So because of that, so everybody was leery of that. So we fell out of escrow because we couldn't get the financing through on that. So we kind of regrouped, bought some stuff in LA. But then when we went back with this one, I think, again, we had the same issue. It was our first deal. But one of the things that helped us was I grew up in Tennessee.
Mm,
So even though I wasn't living in the market, I still was familiar with the market. So we were kind of able to work that to our advantage. And I think we were really lucky to be able to do it, because now I think they've changed the rules and you have to have 3 properties with agency debt before you can do your own deal. So we wouldn't even qualify now to do it. So that's one of my goals this year, is to partner up with people on deals and get 2 more agency debt under my belt. So then next year, or the year later, if I want to do a deal on my own, then I now have that added experience to be able to do it.
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because that was the difference between, for people wondering why we were able to get on one and not the others. It was that you knew that, to them, you knew the area, right? You grew up in that area, so that you had
Yeah.
some knowledge of that area. Well, looking back, was there anything else that you think you could have done on that first deal to make that loan work? Do you guys consider maybe using a sponsor of some sort to sign on the loan as well, or?
We didn't really consider any of that, because we weren't in the mindset of teaming up with people. We were in the mindset of like, oh, we have to do it ourselves. And even the one in Memphis, we were like, we have to do it ourselves, because everybody that we knew was like, oh, you don't want to invest in real estate, it's too risky and you're crazy. And so that's been great to get in this whole networking with people. And now there's this whole world of people that I could team up with and partner up with and do these deals that I never thought I could do. So that's been the exciting part of this past year.
Yeah, that's such an interesting point that you bring up, and it's so true, right? That unfortunately, for people who with like ourselves, who don't surround themselves with people that are doing the same thing and love it and are passionate about it and
Yeah.
believe in it and have done it, um,
Yeah.
it the other side of that is people that just think real estate is, like you said, scary, it's risky, it's, your tenants are going to destroy the place, the house is going to burn down, right?
Yeah.
All that stuff, right? And then you guys
Yeah.
went through that. How were you guys able to? Did you guys just have such a strong belief in real estate, or how were you? Because I know plenty of people have the same issue, and a lot of people, unfortunately, let those voices win. Right? Don't invest in real estate; it's dangerous, it's risky. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Blah, blah. And unfortunately, a lot of people, that stops a lot of people, I think. So how, I'd be interested how you guys were able to push that noise out and just focus and keep doing what you guys wanted to do.
That's a great question. I think I think we just were driven, and we just knew that that was something that we needed to do. And we had decided this was the path we were going to take. And, my wife had that experience, and I just kind of trusted her judgment and guidance, and we just kept going. And I think that's still what drives us today, because we still are, I don't go to Vegas and gamble, but I feel like I gamble all the time in real estate. So I'm up for taking that calculated risk, and knowing that sometimes I'm going to fail, but most of the time I'm going to win.
Yeah, and it's like you said, right? It's a calculated risk, right? So for people listening, right, you say, okay, you're okay with risk, right? And all of us take a risk investing in real estate, but all of us take a
Yeah.
risk crossing the road every day, right?
Yeah,
We take a
exactly.
risk, like essentially walking down
Yeah.
the stairs. You can
Yeah.
fall down the stairs and bump your head or whatever, right? So it's a risk, but it's a calculated risk, because what we do is we analyze deals, we analyze markets, we educate ourselves, right? We surround ourselves with other people, right? And we essentially, for the most part, understand what we set getting ourselves into. And like you said, there's always going to be things that go wrong. There's always going to be things that come out of nowhere, right, and surprise you,
Yeah.
right? It's always going
Yeah.
to happen. But I think what it is, for me anyway, what I always tell myself is I'd rather have these problems and be in real estate than not, right?
Exactly.
People should be jealous of these problems that I have that come up in
Yes.
real estate, because I'm in real estate and they're not. I'm better
Yeah.
in my future and doing things for retirement, doing things for now, doing things for my son, for my family.
Yeah.
And if a water leak is what happens and I have to put up with that, I'm okay. I'll put up with that all day, every day. Oh, not all day, every day. I'm lying. You get what I mean, right?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
a necessary evil a lot of times, and you've got to accept that. And the sooner that you accept that, the better, I think. So, yeah,
Yeah.
no, but it's true, right? It's like, unfortunately, so many people, I think they put their negativity on other people as well. And part of it,
Yeah.
as well, they do care. There's friends and family that don't want it, but part of it as well is that they're too scared to do it themselves, right? They don't
Yeah.
do it, and they also, if I want to do it, but I'm too scared and I can stop you from doing it, it makes me feel good. Because if you go ahead and do it,
Exactly.
if
Yeah.
you go ahead and do it, it makes me
Yeah.
feel bad about myself that I haven't. So unfortunately,
Exactly.
there's all this thing. So I just want to say, anyone who's out there who believes in real estate and wants to invest in real estate, just I'm not saying remove yourself from these negativity, but just ignore it and surround yourself with other people that are investing in real estate. Because for me, just like you, right, that's just been huge. The more you surround
Yeah.
yourself with people with like-minded
Oh, totally.
attitudes, it's just so huge to me.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what you're trying to do, real estate or something else. You need to surround yourself by like-minded people and people that are going to support your dream and they're thinking that same way, because that's how you kind of block out all the negative people, is at least you can refer back to these people that kind of have the same mindset that you do.
Yeah, and you're seeing them
And
do it as well, right? The proof of concept is right in front of your eyes when people are doing it.
yeah, and two quotes I like is one person was talking about, how people are scared of stuff, and they're like, well, you drive 70 miles an hour down a highway, and there's this little tiny yellow line painted on the middle. That's all that keeps the truck in the other lane from coming over and killing you. But you're okay with that risk.
Yeah.
But like going and investing or something, then it's like, ooh, that's too risky. I shouldn't do that. So you really need to like, step back and objectively look at it. Another thing is somebody said, if you're not failing, then you're not trying hard enough. So people that are like, oh, I don't want to fail. Well, you should be, I've been trying really hard and okay, I failed at something, but that's because I tried really hard and I'm really pushing the envelope. So you need to kind of embrace your failures, because that means that you know that you're actually, pushing yourself harder.
Yeah, you're in that growth zone, right? You're trying to
Yeah.
grow and you're getting out of your comfort zone. If you're in your comfort zone, okay, it's easy not to fail, right? I
Yeah.
can not fail sitting on the couch all day, every day, right? There's nothing's gonna happen, right? I'm sitting there on the couch. But if I go out,
You can spill your drink on your shirt or
that's
something.
true, yeah. That's true. But you've got to get out there and try. And like you said, fail fast as well, right? The sooner you fail at something, right, the sooner you can go on to the next thing that is going to be a success, right? You've got to understand that you will fail at stuff in life if you try stuff that's outside of your comfort zone, but understand that and be like, okay, cool, I failed, on to the next one, right? And the next one's, they'll take me that one step closer to where I need to be. So yeah, that's I like that a lot. I like those 2 points actually. So tell me a little bit more about this 36 units actually. So how did you find it? What do you guys like about it? And what was your business plan with it?
Well, we were looking in Texas and Florida, and I was flying home to Tennessee, and I thought, well, I don't really look at Memphis. Let me look at Memphis. Reached out to a broker, met with him, and he gave me the whole spiel on Memphis. And um, I didn't realize there was a big medical industry there. There's a huge, like trucking companies. There's like 400 trucking companies. There's the Mississippi River. There's 2 freeways, interstate, cross-country freeways that go through there. There's FedEx. So there's this huge logistics operation there. There's huge like medical schools, hospitals. There's St. Jude, which is doing like a $1.2 billion expansion. So there's a lot of this stuff that's going on in Memphis that I didn't realize about. So I'm like, wow, the market's really great. The prices were really good. And then he, like 2 weeks later, he's like, oh, I have this off-market deal that I think would be good for you. And we didn't want to take a lot of risks because it was our first deal. So we're looking for more stabilized assets. So this was one that the guy had rehabbed most of the units in it. So we liked it and the numbers worked. We were looking in other markets, but this was going to cash flow better. So we ended up, getting under contract with it. So I think that was amazing. I think that, the universe or whoever aligned to say, you need to take this side trip and go through Memphis and meet with this guy, and he's going to give you this deal. Like, it was just kind of the stars were aligned. So that was how we ended up getting it in Memphis. And um, the property is great overall. We, like, again, he had rehabbed a lot of the units. So the only CapEx we really had to do was put new roofs on it, because they had already paved the parking lot and everything. So it didn't really cost us a lot of extra work to get into it. We had a management company that they moved their office like a block or 2 away. So that was a great fit. And everything was great. It's fully occupied. Things were going great with it. And then like 6 months in, we had some medical students. So medical students like move out in the summer. So we started to have a little turnover. And we started to have like little hiccups with the management company. And it turns out they had taken over a bunch of more properties that one person owned. So they started giving all their attention to that one owner, and us and some of the other clients kind of fell through the cracks. So we ended up having to change management companies. That took a couple months to like find a new one, and so that was a big hiccup and stumbling block. But after that, it went fairly smooth until last year when the laundry room burned, and then we had to rebuild that. So the tenants didn't have a laundry room during COVID, which was a real bummer for them because they had to go off-site during COVID to do their laundry. So we had some more turnover from that, but now we've gotten that fixed and gotten leased back up, and so it's going smooth. And we're planning on holding it for long term. I think this is something we'll probably own for 10 or 20 years. We'll have to refinance our debt in like 6 more years because we'll have the balloon payment, but I think we'll refinance and keep it for long term.
What kind of financing did you get? I know you got agency debt, but what kind of rate? What was the balloon? What was the amortization period on it? What kind of LTV?
It was, I think, you know what, I can't remember exactly. I think it was an 8 year and the term and 30-year amortization. It might have been a 10 year, maybe it was a 10-year term. I can't remember the rate on it. It was like 4.5% or 5 or something like that. But the one thing that we had to give up since it was our first deal was we had to go with the prepayment penalty. We had to go with yield maintenance. So that's like really high. So we can't, it doesn't really make sense if we did want to sell it before it's paid off because you have like a 5% penalty that you have to pay.
Is it a step down or is it just a 5% until that 10-year term is over?
I think it's just a 5. I think it's not exactly 5%. It's whatever the yield maintenance calculation is, but it's just that until I think the year before the term ends.
So how does yield maintenance work in terms of how do they make that calculation? Do you know?
I don't, I looked it up a while back and I've forgotten what it is. It's an interesting calculation that I think it ended up working out to be like a 5% penalty that you have to pay, but I don't remember the exact details on it.
Okay, yeah, which adds up to quite a bit, right? And for people who don't know,
Yeah.
yield maintenance and prepayment is essentially when these lenders, they make these loans, these banks, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, whoever it may be, they want you to keep the loan for a certain amount of time because they're going to make that money on that loan, right? If you get a loan and in years' time you sell that loan and they give you a low interest rate, they're barely making any money on that loan because they're paying servicing fees and everything else that goes in with the loan. But so they want you to hold it for the life of the loan or the term of the loan. So if you get a 5-year term, they want you to hold it for a 5 year. If it's a 10-year, they want you to hold it for a 10-year. And if you sell before that, they make you pay a penalty so that they can still make those returns because they're selling that loan on to investors, right? Would that be a rough description?
Yeah, that's a totally accurate description because they're wanting to ensure their investors that they're going to make a certain amount of money off of this loan. So they have you locked in for a certain period of time to ensure that, because a lot of times you're paying more interest up front anyways on loans.
Yeah. What were some, on the management side of things, what were some red flags from the initial property management company that things weren't going right?
I don't know. They're really nice people. Everything was great. Their office was down the street. It started out with the turnovers. We weren't getting the units leased up that quick. And we had a service where we could actually listen into the phone conversations and hear the tenants calling and speaking to the person that was doing the leasing. And some of the stuff that she was saying, we just didn't agree with. And then there was one where she was sending them to another property that they were managing. And we're like, why are you doing that? Like, you should be just keeping them here. And we were like, that's it. Like, that was kind of our big red flag that we were done and needed to change.
So how hard was it? How hard was it changing management company? You essentially had to fire your property management company, and they have a contract, right? What?
Yeah.
Was that a tough process to go through?
Well, it's kind of challenging when you live in LA and the property's in Memphis. So what we did was we had them FedEx us the cell phone that we use for leasing the property, and my wife manned it from here. So all the leads came to her, and she was scheduling all the showings. And then we hired a local residential broker in Memphis to actually do the showings, like a young girl who had just gotten her license, and paid her a commission for every lease that she did. So that's kind of how we did the lease ups while we were shopping and trying to find other management companies. So we were flying there like every couple of weeks to like just kind of, we still had the old management company in place for repairs and maintenance, but we were kind of managing everything, interviewing new management companies. And so it took a couple of months, and then you figure out what you're going to do. Well, now you have to get your lender approve it. So even though we knew this is who we want to go with, we have to present it to the lender, and it takes them like another 2 months to hash it out and figure it out, and approve it before they could go and actually change it. So it ended up being like a couple of weeks before the contract ended when the lender approved it. So we just did the changeover at the end of the contract.
Oh, okay, okay. So you didn't actually have to um, uh, break the contract essentially. Okay,
Yeah,
contract.
no.
Well, but so you were without a property manager for what, 3 or 4 months, maybe longer?
That's probably a 6 month period.
Wow.
And
So you guys were managing it essentially from, okay, with a little bit of help from
yeah,
California.
yeah.
Wow. What were some of the things that you guys learned during that time to make that work? And how did you make it work?
Oh, it was actually, it's again one of those things that you have this challenge and it's a great experience, because it was a great experience for us because we were dealing with all the prospective tenants. So we really learned our tenant base because we were like right there in it. So we learned what kind of units people were looking for, and like the extra units that hadn't been rehabbed, our plan was to rehab it and raise the rents. Well, we found out that not everybody wants those shiny higher end units, that they want something that's not as nice and a little bit lower price point. And we decided, well, let's just keep those units because we have more people looking for that product than we do for the higher end product. So that was something that we learned and was really good about it. I think from the management aspect, that was great to just, have that experience.
Yeah. What about how were you guys managing maintenance and work orders?
We still had the old management company doing the maintenance part of it.
Okay.
So they were still doing everything except the lease ups. We kind of took the lease ups away from them, but they were doing everything else.
Okay. So it was, so you still had them. So how was that relationship then? How did you, so obviously you guys are saying, hey, we're taking this leasing away, we're not happy with what you're doing. Was that a tough balance between obviously saying, hey, you guys we're very unhappy with what you're doing, but we need you to keep handling our maintenance side of stuff?
Well, it was kind of challenging. The thing is, the owners we didn't really get along with, going forward, but the girls in their office were like amazing.
Mm.
And like I talked to them all the time about the repairs and maintenance, and I would go see them, and the girls in the office were amazing. I think it wasn't really something that was their issue. I think when they took on the other properties, the owner should have hired more employees, which they didn't. So it was kind of a tough balance because I tried to have some empathy with the girls in the office and realize that, it's not their fault and they're doing the best job that they could. And we just kind of made it work the best we could.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I'm glad you were able to make it work. And the new property management company is doing a great job for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. They're amazing. We love them. We shopped a couple of management companies, and this one had, you call other your competitors and see, pretend like you're a tenant and want to see how they treat you. And their other properties, like their people were just amazing. And we're like, wow, they're doing a great job of like training their employees. That's the company we want to go with. And they've just been great. We love them.
Interesting. And then you said, so you guys weathered that storm, and then the laundry room burned.
Yeah, then the laundry room.
What
Yeah.
caused the laundry room to burn down?
Well, it's kind of a little bit longer of a story, but our property used to be a larger property, and the guy that sold it cut it in two, and our laundry room was actually right over on the other side of the other property, so we just had a license to use it. Their storage room caught on fire, and in the process of putting it out, the fire department cut holes in the ceiling of our, the roof and stuff, and so then our laundry room wasn't usable. That guy was going to fix it. And then after a couple of months, he decided he wasn't going to fix it. So then we basically had no laundry room and had to build a laundry room.
Oh, wow.
So the downside of that is you don't have insurance for it because that's not your property. So you don't get an insurance payment to build this new laundry room. So we had to come tap our reserves to do that.
How much, do you mind me asking, how much did a new laundry room cost you guys?
Well, we ended up taking, because it was the most economical option, and this was my wife's idea.
Mhm.
One of our downstairs units, we converted a 2 bedroom, 1 bath. We converted 1 bedroom to the laundry room and made it just a 1 bedroom, 1 bath. So
Mm.
you still have to run all the utilities to it. You have to run the sewer line, the power, you have to put in a new meter, new panel, there's a lot of stuff that goes into this one little room. So with permits, and you have to hire an architect, it ended up costing around $70,000 to do it. So which I still just can't wrap my head around why it costs that much to just do that one thing. But you're connecting into the sewer line, which is in the parking lot. So you got to dig up the parking lot to do that and then repave over it. And, just that part is like $15,000, and it just really adds up.
Yeah, and at that point, what choice do you have, right? You have to have really an on-site
Yeah.
laundry room for the tenants. What were the tenants? How did you handle that with the tenants? Because obviously saying, "Hey guys, for the next few months, you're not going to have a laundry room, but we still want you to pay rent." Did you guys give any kind of concessions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we gave them a concession. I found a company that would do offsite. So they would come pick up your laundry, launder it offsite, and then bring it back. So we had that as an option. Some people used it. We gave them we found all the offsite units close by and gave them those addresses if they want to go offsite. So we tried to just give them options of doing stuff. But we're not just about making money. We want to provide good housing for our residents. That's really important for us. So we felt bad that they weren't able to have on-site laundry, and then COVID happened, and then everything got delayed, and then we just felt really horrible that they weren't able to have on-site laundry. So we're glad that we finally got it back up and running for them.
Yeah, yeah. But what kind of were you guys paying for that laundry, or did you just give them a concession on the rent?
We just gave them a concession on the rents because we thought that would offset their cost of having to go off-site and do laundry or use that laundry service.
Okay. Now, what a learning experience that this property has been for
Yeah,
you guys, but in a good
yeah, it
way, right?
has.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's doing. How did it hold up during the pandemic? Well, I guess the pandemic is still going, but how did it hold up during the worst of it last year?
Oh, it did okay. I mean, we had the challenge with the people were moving out because they wanted to go to a different property that had a laundry, and we were doing the laundry. So it's been a challenging year. We had a couple of people that we had to evict for non-payment for COVID. And we want to work with people because that's the right thing. But these people just would not communicate with us. We'd be trying to communicate with them, and the management company would go over and knock on the door, and they had totally moved out. They didn't say we can't pay. They just up and moved out. So we had a we had 3 of those. So we've kind of weathered the storm with all that, and hopefully this year is going to be a lot smoother.
Mm. But thankfully, you guys, like you said, I think you've said a few times now, that you guys had good reserves going into this, right?
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of people, especially when you buy it yourself, right? It's a little different when you're doing a syndication or whatnot, or joint venturing. That's a little different. But a lot of people, when they buy these properties themselves, they don't necessarily have any reserves, right? If
yeah,
they're buying $1 million property, they have 200 and a little bit of closing costs, 200,000 and a little bit of closing
yeah,
costs, and that's it, right? How
yeah.
did you guys have an allocated amount, or did you just have cash that you were just sitting on anyway?
It was a little bit both. We have had cash that we were sitting on to hopefully do another acquisition, and then just had other money allocated for reserves. And then I was, like I'm always listening to audiobooks and doing stuff like this, and you're always trying to get like the one nugget. And I had listened to Tillman Fertitta's audiobook in 2019, like I can't think it was in the fall. And he had some great points I've never heard anybody cover. He's talking about tenants negotiating with their landlords on the leases on like the commercial end. But one thing he said was you need to get a line of credit, because if you don't need it, it's easy to get. But if you need it, you're never going to be able to get it. And I'm like, I've got like reserves and stuff. I don't need a line of credit. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to listen to him. I'm going to go get a line of credit. I've never done that before in my life. So went and got one for my equipment rental business, got another one for this business. And I'm like so grateful that I did it, because now I have that. I haven't had to tap it yet, but that's just an extra cushion to have in addition to my reserves. So I recommend going forward, everybody, if they can get a line of credit just to have for that cushion, that's definitely worth it.
How do you get separate lines of credit? Was one on the property a HELOC and then one on your business something different?
No, they're just both like business lines of credit.
Okay. And how,
So I just went through my bank, and it's based off revenues. And
oh, okay. That's something I'll have to look into then. Just like you said, right? You want to have reserves, but if you can use a line of credit as reserves and always have some, right? I wouldn't say
yeah,
depend on your business, but the less money you have sitting in the bank, like we ideally none of us would have any money sitting in the bank if it made business sense. We'd have it invested in properties, but if you can have a lesser amount but be able to tap into that line of credit when you need it as well,
yeah,
that's a great way to kind of mitigate your risks and still have
yeah,
those reserves, because reserves are so crucial, right? I've heard it
yeah,
so many times, right? It saves so many people, and I think the people that really get in trouble are people who don't have these reserves, because you
exactly.
can weather a lot of stuff if you have reserves to kind of help you out, and it's just a snowball and a negative effect if you don't have those capital reserves, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so now we were talking beforehand. Now you kind of been looking in Florida markets, right? You've kind of pivoted a little bit again. You're kind of looking to get into syndications now.
Yeah, yeah, trying to get into syndications. I'm looking in Tennessee and Florida, because Tennessee, I know Memphis. I used to live in Nashville, so looking in those markets. But then I've found some people that want to team up with me on deals, and they were wanting to go after Florida. So I volunteered and said, "Hey, I'll go look in Florida for you also." So now I'm looking in like Tampa, Orlando, and Jacksonville. So I'm going to go over Christmas. When went home to see family, I went and met with brokers in Nashville and some more brokers in Memphis. And then the last 2 weeks of this month, I'm taking off and just going to Florida, driving markets, because I haven't been to any of those markets in years, and kind of getting familiar with them, meeting with brokers, gonna hopefully look at some properties. So just trying to make that push this year into those markets too.
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting topic. Like getting familiar with the market by going there, right? For you hear
Yeah.
people say it all the time, but what does that mean to you? What are you outside of meeting with the brokers, outside of going to actually look at maybe a few deals? How are you planning to familiarize with yourself with that market? What does that mean to you?
Well, I'm one of the people that I learn best by doing. Like reading or hearing is kind of in one ear and out the other. But if I can see it and touch it, then that's how I learn the best. So for me, it's looking at the map and finding out this area is bad, this area is up and coming, but actually going there and driving it and seeing, okay, this is really up and coming, and there's this, you know, mixed use development that's, really helping the area out, or something, just being able to look and see all that stuff. And then I mark it on a physical like paper map, and then I can come back and refer to that. And then when I'm looking at properties, then I can know, oh yeah, there was that thing that's really good that this property's next to it, so that's going to be a good thing. It's going to be growing, and or they're putting a new train line in, or something like that. It really helps you with your planning process of how the property is going to perform, a couple of years down the road.
Yeah, no, I think that's really smart. I'm the same way. I think when I was familiarizing myself with Cincinnati, where I mainly invest for multifamily, I went there 3 or 4 times before I made my first offer. Because yes, there's so much information you can get online, right? And that's great information, and you can learn a lot. And I know plenty of people that never visit the city before they invest, and they're super successful. But for me, I like to get the feel of the place as well, right? You get a feel for an area, for a city, for a neighborhood, for a market by driving it, from being there, from talking to people, right? For like
Yeah,
what kind of people live here, how are the people of this area, right? You just get a different kind of feel from that. So I think that's smart, as well as then meeting with brokers, right? Because that's a challenge in itself as well, is creating that relationship with brokers initially, right?
yeah.
Especially like I think you said you're looking at 100 plus units, right? You guys want properties that are 100 plus units. How is that conversation going? I know you have a 38 unit, so I'm sure that helps. But are you finding any challenges with gaining that initial credibility with them?
Oh, of course. It's a total. I mean, it's like networking. I've been networking on with the syndicators and stuff the last year. Now I'm starting this phase of networking with brokers, and I think they have so many people that are calling them and emailing them. Hey, I wanted looking for a deal, that actually going there and physically meeting with them and taking them out to lunch and getting to know them. It's it's still the same thing. It's just building a relationship and getting to know them. And, I went in Nashville and met with a couple of brokers, and there was one brokerage that I really wanted to meet with, but they were all out that the week, between Christmas and New Year's for vacation. And one of them reached out and was like, well, you can come by my house if you want to. I'm like, okay, it was like out of the way, but I'm like, cool.
Uh-huh.
So we went and sat on his back porch for like an hour and talked. And I'm like, this is, the best meeting I've had, because we're just like at the guy's house. So I think that was great. Hopefully that helps us build a relationship, but that's just what it's all about. Just going and having a beer with somebody, and that's more important than anything, just that bonding with them. And now they trust you that you're, a solid person and can actually do a deal, which is the main thing. They want to know if they get under contract with you that you can take the deal down, and you're not just wasting their time and their client's time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's so important, right? Because brokers, especially in the 100+ unit space, right? They're the ones finding the deals for the most part, right? There are
Yeah.
some other ways you can find deals, but that's the main way you're going to find deals. And so if you can create those broker relationships, right, and make sure that they know that you're serious, make sure that they know that you're credible, and that, just like you said, right, their main concern is always that, are you going to be able to close on this deal? Are you going to be able to perform, right? And if you kind of give them the idea that you are and that you're serious, and you're not a voice on the other side of the phone saying, hey, I'm looking for a 15 cap in a 5 cap market, right, or a 30% cash on cash return, or whatever is more following up is can make a huge difference, I think.
Yeah.
Very cool, very cool. Well, cool story, man. I appreciate you sharing everything that you've shared. But as this show is called Wrestling with Real Estate, I like to incorporate some wrestling related real estate question. So the first question is, what would your wrestling name be?
Oh, I don't know what my wrestling name would be. Like I guess I love I don't know. I tried to think of something. I couldn't think of something.
Maybe the Lightning Man or something. Or
maybe, yeah. Why don't you give me a name? You're better at it.
The Lighting Man, or the I feel like it should be with lighting, right? Because of your business, something like that. Yeah, the Lighting Man.
Or lightning bolt or something.
Lightning
like
bolt. Yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah.
So every wrestler has a special move, right? It's their biggest strength. What is your special move in real estate?
I think I like the analysis and underwriting, like getting in Excel and just playing with all the numbers. I feel like that's my big strength. Since I can't bash people with folding chairs in real estate.
You're going to bash them over the head with the underwriting instead.
Yeah, exactly.
What's been the biggest body slam you've taken in your real estate investing career?
I don't know. I think it was just with the challenges of this property and the learning curve of having to change management companies, having to deal with the fire. It's just dealing with all those hurdles and curveballs that get thrown to you that you just have to get past and keep moving forward with.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So was there a moment that you were standing on the top rope getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it? How did you overcome it?
I stood on that top rope for like 2 or 3 years. Like it was just like scary, like trying to make that leap, and is it going to work out? And finally I've just done it, and I wish I'd done it a couple of years before.
But by leap, you mean, was it the 38 units or was it what you're doing now? Okay.
Yeah, well, both trying to do the 38 units and then doing now, because I wanted to like take the time off work to do this, because it takes a lot of time to do. And it's hard when you're, working at a job and everything, it's going good, to be like, okay, well, I'm going to take this thing that's going good and put it over here and work on this whole unknown area. So that's been like a big, scary challenge for me.
And how do you think you did overcome it? Did you just dive in, or was there something that made you jump, you think?
Well, COVID was the thing that like gave me that push, because now I have this time to do it. So I think if COVID hadn't happened, I would still probably just be grinding away at work and still be like, oh, one of these days I want to make the time to go do syndications.
Yeah, me the exact same thing. Yeah, so interesting. I think a lot of people will quote COVID as not necessarily a positive thing, but a positive kick up the backside, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Because the same thing for me. I've been talking about podcasts, wanted to do it for a long time, and if it hadn't been for COVID, I don't know if I ever would have got around to it. But so
Yeah.
happy that I did, and it's led to so many great things, like
Yeah.
meeting people like yourself and having great conversations. So yeah, it's good. It's always some good you can take out of everything.
Yeah, it is. I would love to do a podcast, but it like takes up a lot of time. I really appreciate, the time that you're putting into this, because I know it takes the time for you to sit here and talk to me, but also there's like the back end, the editing it and putting it together. So I really appreciate all the time you're putting into this, as you're doing some great content.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that as well. Yeah, it is very time consuming, but it's fun as well. Like, this conversation has been awesome. I love this stuff. It's just like another reason why I can talk about real estate, right? I have a scheduled call that's going to be talking about real estate. So I love it. It's so much fun to me. Well, David, hey, thank you so much. Like I said, genuinely from, we really genuinely enjoy talking about real estate, and I genuinely enjoyed listening to your story and everything. And there's been lessons there that I've learned from today's call. So I really appreciate you sharing everything that you have. But if anyone wants to find out more about what you've got going on, how can they reach you? How can they find out more?
The best way would just be go to my website. It's raisere.com. So that's RAISERE.com.
Raise Real Estate. Okay, I'll put that link in the show notes. So, hey, David, thank you so much, man. Have a great rest of your day.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. This was fun.
This was fun. Thank you.